And we begin with good day, sir.
Geeks come in all shapes and sizes, and that they come into all kinds of things.
I was thinking more about the Satanic Panic.
By the scholar Gary Gygax.
Well, wait, hold on.
I said good day, sir. Not defending Roman slavery by any stretch, but
God, that's bad.
Let them vote. Fuck off.
When historians, and especially British historians, want to get cute.
Oh, it's in there.
Okay.
It is not worth the journey. This is a Geek History of Time,
where we bring nerdery into the real world. I'm Ed Blaylock. I'm a world history teacher at the 7th grade level. I'm a father of a 9-month-old little boy now, and I've been a geek since I was young enough that I don't even remember how old I was.
I'm Damian Harmony. I am a high school Latin teacher, formerly a history teacher. I am a father of a 8, almost 9-year-old, he informed me yesterday, and a 6-year-old, raising them to be geeks, and more importantly, decent geeks at that. I've been a geek since I was at least 5, as far as I can recall. And yeah. Any books that you're reading right now, Ed?
Right now, I am working my way through Home, A History of Domesticity by Bill Bryson. I am simultaneously also working my way through several other books. The one that immediately jumps out at me is an apologetic by one of the founders of distributism, and I'll remember it later.
Okay.
It'll jump out at me. Go ahead.
Sure. I'm not reading any new books lately. I've kind of stalled on the reading the new books thing. However, I have taken to reading comic books again. And nice. I am now reading, I decided to go back to the beginning, and I'm now reading the Fantastic Four from publication date, Spider-Man from publication date,
wow,
Avengers and X-Men when I get to them, and probably Daredevil. So I'm going to start reading everything as it came out because I have that.
Oh, yeah, all right.
Yeah,
so there's a very
app.
Kind of historiography kind of thing going on. That's a neat project.
It's neat.
Like
it's disappointing. It's so disappointing.
Well, yeah. Well, because,
I'm not a child in the 60s.
Yeah, well, yeah. And,
it's not new to me.
Yeah, well, it's not new to you.
So,
and I know you're just seeing stuff that gets, posted from those old comic books online all the time.
Yeah.
Language has changed. Attitudes have changed dramatically. So it's got to be...
I have saved some of the best pictures
sure.
from these. Oh,
yeah.
It is hilarious. And some will prove a few points that I plan to make in another podcast in the near future.
Perfect.
So, speaking of podcasts, we're doing this one today. It's part 1 of a multi-part series. Originally, I'd intended it to be a 2-parter, and then it exploded into at least a 4-parter. And the fact that I'm talking with somebody who knows stuff about this stuff, it'll probably be a much larger one. So.
Well, and those of you who've been listening know my propensity to rant anyway, so that was almost doomed from the start. So what is it that I know something about that we're going to be talking about?
Well, before I get to that,
okay.
I would like to point out that geeks come in all shapes and sizes, and that they come into all kinds of things that you might not recognize as geekery at first. Okay. But I have, since I was 4, been a professional wrestling nerd. I loves me the professional wrestling. I adore the professional wrestling. And when I lived in San Francisco, I watched the local KOFY TV 20 where they used to show the Yule log. That channel had wrestling on it. It had at first just the garbagest wrestling there was. It was Northern California independent wrestling.
Oh, nice.
And then they got a pipe in from a Minneapolis company called the AWA.
Holy cow.
Which that will figure in.
Yeah.
So that's one half of what this podcast is about. The other half is something you and I both know a fair amount about. You probably will be able to carry more on this tag team, if you will.
Okay. Oh, nice.
You will be the Jim Neidhart to my Bret Hart.
Oh, nice. Okay.
We'll not see. Just because of the beard.
Yeah, all right. Hey.
But this episode is this series is called The Lost Cause: How It Saved Wrestling and Ruined Professional Wrestling, Just Like Our Country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one of my buttons.
Yeah.
You know from conversations that we've had.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I want to hear about this.
Yeah.
I'm already stoked.
And putting this out there.
Pardon me.
Woo! Wow, that was. I'm gonna have to adjust the levels. on that later.
Maybe, but I had to.
Yeah, and it's funny that you would choose Ric Flair's thing because he is part of the group that is most tied to Lost Cause, but he doesn't represent the Lost Cause. He represents the antagonist to the Lost Cause. Awesome. We'll get there.
All right.
But
I'm intrigued already.
Oh yeah. And I would just point out, when I taught history, I used to teach U.S. imperialism, and I would show them a wrestling match ahead of time.
As metaphor.
Yeah, absolutely.
As the overarching, look, this is
I would show them that,
is...
and then I would show, like, when we got to the Cuban-American War, Spanish-American War, specifically in Cuba, I'd show them the famous animated short, Godzilla versus Bambi. And so... The kids got the visuals. Yeah,
good one. Yeah, I like that. I like that. By the way, your pedagogy. I'm hot for your pedagogy.
Oh,
I gotta say that's amazing.
I
as a fellow teacher,
love doing what I do.
That's brilliant.
I'm trying to find some way to put wrestling into Latin, but so far, which you would think it'd be easier than it is.
Yeah. Well,
it's not,
because classical wrestling was
right. Well, I've done it with
it's a completely different creature.
Yeah, and I've done it with certain satire. Like there's this guy in the Satyricon who's like, and on my tombstone, I want to have all the matches of Patiates, and he was this famous wrestler. I said that would be like in my will saying, put all of John Cena's greatest hits on my tombstone. So, and the kids get that. Yeah, so it's good. Right. So we got to start with the Civil War. That's a starter. Yeah, it happened.
That's a hell of a starter.
Yeah, boy howdy. It was America's bloodiest conflict in history.
Well, yeah, because everybody involved was an American. So
killed
was an American, so that's kind of mathematically the way that works.
Right. So, and that is a bit of a misnomer because it was U.S. versus Confederate. They're all Americans. Technically, they declared themselves a separate country, but they did so, by the way, based on slavery. And one could argue that every...
I'm sorry. Before we go any further.
Sure.
This is one of the things that chaps my ass on a regular basis online. Here's the deal. The Confederate flag, first of all, did not represent the Confederacy at any point. It represented the Army of Northern Virginia for a very, very brief period of time during the conflict. Mm-hmm. Number one. Number two, the Articles of Secession, the Constitution of the Confederacy, and when I say Articles of Secession. Sorry. When I say Articles of Secession, I mean the Articles of Secession of, like, all of the Confederate states specifically mention slavery. The Confederate equivalent of the Federalist Papers and the Confederate equivalent of the letters written by the Founding Fathers that we use to look at how should we interpret this part of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. All of them explicitly stated we need to preserve slavery as an institution.
Yes.
So anybody who tries to say that the Civil War was about states' rights is either misinformed and only effectively half-taught, or they are lying. Because it was about states' rights, specifically states' rights to maintain the institution of chattel slavery.
Yes.
As a world history teacher, I also want to take just a moment to point out right here that the way chattel slavery worked in the United States and the founding of this country up until 1865 was completely different and completely aberrant from the way slavery worked in other civilizations throughout human history. It was the Romans, some of the nastiest, meanest people in all of history. These are people who watched blood sports for fun, who thought that going to a public execution was a good day out and a barrel of laughs. Those people did not have race-based slavery.
No.
And there was a potential for slaves to actually be able to buy their own freedom. It wasn't exactly common, but it was also...
It was enough that there were laws about it.
It was enough that there were laws about it, and we know that it happened often enough that it was remarked upon, but not miraculous.
Right. So, and further on that point, because I teach Latin, so I know something of Roman slavery. Slaves were to be pitied, not looked down upon.
Yeah.
The idea that someone was a slave was a reminder that you too could suffer a fall as great. but also that they could climb their way back up.
Yeah.
And that was a very normal thing. In fact, they had a word for a freed slave, and a freed slave would have to wear a pileus, a felt cap, for a little while, and he would be attached to the household that he'd left. Transition,
like training wheels.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. But what that meant was that he was cared for. There was a welfare state for these people.
Yeah.
Taking care of these folks. Now, this is not all slaves. This is not all slavery. If you were a slave in the salt mines or any mines or on a galley,
at any kind of hard labor, it was
your life expectancy was about 4 years or less. But if you were a house slave or even a farm slave, you could live a fairly long life, depending on your master. I'm not defending Roman slavery by any stretch.
By any stretch, no.
But it was not as
not
brutal and
sadistic,
irrepressible. Yeah,
repressive kind of thing that slavery was in this country.
Yeah.
So now that we've gotten that off of our collective chest.
Sure. So they separated themselves
Yes.
from the United States based on slavery.
Yeah.
You could technically argue that every Johnny Reb killed wasn't an American, but honestly, we see them as Americans.
Yeah.
Which means that virtually every casualty of war was an American,
Yeah.
Since it was Americans killing Americans. So, and before we get too far into the weeds, I kind of want to do what you just did, was address the fact that this war was absolutely 100% about slavery. And any desire to remove that from the equation or make it less central, because that's another thing you see happening, is part of what we're talking about today. Yeah. Confederate States were born when Abraham Lincoln was elected to office November 6th of 1860. They began to secede almost immediately. First in flight was South Carolina on December 20th.
Nice thing.
Thank you. Here's a quote. We, the people of the state of South Carolina, in a convention assembled, do declare and ordain, and it is hereby declared and ordained, that this ordinance adopted by us in convention on the 23rd day of May, in the year of our Lord 1788, whereby the Constitution of the United States of America was ratified, and also all acts and parts of acts of the General Assembly of this state ratifying amendments of the said Constitution are hereby repealed, and that the union now subsisting between South Carolina and other states under the name of the United States of America is hereby dissolved. Now that was done at Charleston in the 20th day of December in the year of our Lord 1860. So they decided
right away. Oh, well, and
he gets elected in November.
Yeah.
They're out December 20th.
Yeah, a month and a half later. And when you take into account the
time it takes
lack of speed with which news traveled,
they had this in their pocket.
They were, yeah. I mean, the whole time the Republican Party was even forming.
Yeah.
The Southern Whigs and the Southern Democrats were united. I mean, the Whigs had basically fallen apart, but Southern politicians, anybody who was anybody in the South, was working toward, okay, look, the Whigs have fallen apart. They're all going into this new fangled, Yankee party up north.
Right.
And,
free labor, free soil, free men.
Labor,
what are you talking about?
What are you even talking about? You know, and even though the Republican Party and Lincoln specifically said they were not abolitionists, the very fact that they were saying they wanted to limit the spread of slavery was seen as an existential threat.
Yes.
And so, yeah, they had been scheming about this for months, over a year.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
In fact, they even said if he gets elected, we're out. I mean, that was essentially
that was it.
That was the whistle they blew.
Yeah.
So the two senators from South Carolina, they tendered their resignations. Other states held hastily assembled but very well organized, which again tells me that they'd had this plan for a while.
Oh yeah.
Conventions.
There's letters and correspondence that we have that shows us. Yeah.
By February 1st, Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida had left the Union. He doesn't take office until March, because back then inaugurations happened in March.
Yeah.
Okay, because the thaw. February 4th, except for Texas, all of these states send delegates to Montgomery, Alabama. I love that Texas is just like, no, we're not going to.
You know what? No,
we're our thing.
We're out. We're on our own.
But they elected Jefferson Davis to be the president of the Confederate States of America. Now, there was even an attempted amendment to make this not so, giving federal protection to slavery in the South. So, the Republicans in the Senate and other senators not from South Carolina, from the South, were trying to keep the Union together. Yeah. Even as this is happening,
even as it was falling apart, there were efforts to try to find a way to mollify the
can we keep this marriage together?
Slave owning classes. Yeah.
Now the problem with this though is that because so many states left, the South couldn't have their legislatures approve the amendment, and you need 3/4 of state legislatures to approve the amendment to ratify it. By the way, Lincoln was totally cool with that. Maybe not totally cool, but like I can't get everything I want. I want Union above all else.
Yeah. If I could save the Union without setting a single slave free, I would do it.
Right.
If I'm remembering the quote correctly.
Yeah. Now, here's a quote by Abraham Lincoln. I understand a proposed amendment to the Constitution, which amendment, however, I have not seen, has passed Congress to the effect that the federal government shall never interfere with the domestic institutions of the states, including that of persons held to service. Holding such a provision to now be implied constitutional law, I have no objection to its being made express and irrevocable. He was willing to sell people down the river.
Yeah.
So I'd like to put that out there. Also, I do like the fact that he doesn't ever say slavery. There were so many, many euphemisms.
The variety of euphemisms that were used throughout the United States.
Yep. Mental and verbal gymnastics.
Because at the end of the day, everybody knew it was morally reprehensible, but they were convinced it was necessary, and if it was eliminated, there would just be absolute anarchy, and God, nobody has a plan about what we're going to do if we get rid of it.
Well, and if anybody comes up with a plan, you could easily poke a hole in it and say, "What about this?" And then the absence of perfect means not good enough, and therefore.
Yeah.
So March 4th, Lincoln gets inaugurated as president.
Yeah.
And almost as a response, Confederate Vice President Alexander Stephens gave what is now called the, quote, cornerstone speech, because he cited white supremacy and black enslavement as a great truth and a cornerstone of the Confederacy. Here's what he says. Its foundations are laid. Its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. He then goes on to use the Bible and claims, our Confederacy is founded upon principles in strict conformity with these laws. This stone, which was rejected by the first builders, is become the chief of the corner, the real cornerstone in our new edifice.
I'm sorry. I know that you
and I have a denominational difference.
We have a very profound denominational difference. I was going to make a remark before you quoted that part of that speech, which I have not read in its entirety ever before. I was about to say, I've never wanted to go back in time, grab somebody by the back of their head and slam their face into a table so badly in all my life. And then you read that quote, which is part of Easter Mass as a Catholic.
Oh, Jesus.
And to hear some Peckerwood redneck fucking, I don't remember what state Stevens was from. I don't care. Oh, man. See, this is the kind of thing that makes me want to go find a surcoat and grab and declare a crusade. Just, no, we're done.
Yeah.
Deus Vult.
I would point out he probably wasn't a Peckerwood, given that in South Carolina the property requirement to become a senator was you had to own, I believe, 200 slaves.
Okay.
So men who espouse this kind of stuff is your upper class.
Yeah.
And write this kind of way and having read this way?
I'm talking about actual,
oh, gotcha. Okay.
Class.
Yeah.
I'm not. No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't say trailer trash.
Yeah.
I meant
he was the aristocracy.
Prick.
Yeah.
Prick.
Oh, okay.
Let me change my language. Not Peckerwood. Prick. This
he goes on.
Gigantic bag of flaccid dicks. Sorry. Continue.
Which, when you open them up, you find out that they're all cockroaches inside.
Yeah. Go ahead.
He goes on. The new Constitution, he must. The new Constitution has put at rest forever all the agitating questions relating to our peculiar institutions, African slavery as it exists among us, the proper status of the Negro in our form of civilization. This was the immediate cause of the late rupture and present revolution. Jefferson in his forecast has anticipated this as the rock upon which the old Union would be split. He was right. What was conjecture with him is now a realized fact. But whether he fully comprehended the great truth upon which that rock stood and stands may be doubted. The prevailing ideas entertained by him and most of the leading statesmen. If you're going to keep pantomiming beating the shit out of this guy, it's going to be really hard to read this.
Sorry. It's hard not to.
Okay, so the prevailing ideas entertained by him and most of the leading statesmen at this time of the formation of the old Constitution were that the enslavement of the African was in violation of the laws of nature, that it was wrong in principle, socially, morally, and politically. It was an evil that they knew not well how to deal with. But the general opinion of the men of that day was that somehow or another, in the order of providence, the institution would be evanescent and pass away. Those ideas, however, were fundamentally wrong. They rested upon the assumption of the equality of the races. This was an error. It was a sandy foundation, and the idea of a government built upon it, when the storm came and the wind blew, it fell. So, Ed, as a man of religion... What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem?
Oh, heresy, dark, bloody heresy.
But at the time, how many people were saying that was heresy?
Not
nearly enough.
Not nearly enough.
And the ones who were considered crazy.
Yeah, and what I, historiographically, what I find most remarkable is one of the things...
Oh, and we're going to get into the historiography.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is all about history. Yeah. If we're talking about lost cause, that's what all this is.
Yeah.
But what I wind up being at pains to explain to my students, because I teach in a predominantly lower income, very significant proportion of people of color kind of setting. I have a significant number of African American students from lower income levels, and I am a prototypical middle class white guy. I mean, and so when the issue of race comes up, I'm teaching 7th grade world history. We're going back to the fall of the Roman Empire and everything that came up from there till the French Revolution. One of the things that I point out is the idea that we have of race. Is a modern invention. I just gave this speech to my kids like a week and a half ago.
Nice.
Talking about slavery in Rome.
Sure.
Because they were saying, well, were the slaves black people? And I said, well, some of them were if they were captured and enslaved in North Africa.
Right.
But to the Romans, it didn't matter. They didn't have an idea of race like we have it today. Right. The idea that we have of race was invented to justify the peculiar institution of American race-based chattel slavery, because West Africa was where you could get the slaves from because of the colonizing efforts of the Portuguese and the way those kingdoms were dealing with things.
One of the reasons you were able to do that was because Bernardo de Casas gives his treatise on why it's better to use African slaves instead of Native American slaves, because God likes that.
Yes. Fuck him. Sorry.
That's okay. You get to say that. Yeah.
Not sorry.
No.
Not sorry at all. And so, that the whole, like every racial quote unquote racial problem that we're dealing with today is because a group of white people had to find a way to morally and in their own way of looking at it scientifically justify keeping a whole different group of people in bondage and oppression strictly based on a set of physical differences.
Well, because the religion that they believed in did not endorse slavery. It didn't.
No.
Straight up Christianity.
Straight up Christianity said
and Islam do not.
There is no difference between Greek or slave. Muhammad, who I'm going to confess I have a number of problems with, but Muhammad himself said, if you own slaves, set them free.
Right.
You should. He said you should set them free. And the only circumstances in early Islam under which it was like, no, you can have slaves was, conquest of non-monotheistic peoples.
Right.
And then, even then, you were supposed to, inculcate them.
Kind of bring them up to speed.
Bring them up to speed, and then set them free.
Right.
And the problem is that people suck. Like, throughout history, humans have found one way or another to, do what they wanted to do and find ways to justify it. And, ISIS used that example of, convert polytheists to try to justify widespread slavery in their territory, and it was all women being enslaved for horrible,
Boko Haram, for instance.
Haram. Boko Haram as well, and then, in the States and in Great Britain before they abolished slavery, it was used race, like this whole pseudoscientific science of race studies showed up.
It's so funny you bring up pseudoscience, because the next quote I have is by the same man using pseudoscience, which was really big in the 1800s. Back then it was called science.
Well done.
Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite ideas. Its foundations are laid. Its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro
Stop talking about cornerstones, you jackal.
That the Negro is not equal to the white man. That slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world, based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. The truth has been slow in the process of its development, like all other truths in the various departments of science. He's like a more racist Thomas Jefferson.
Which is hard to credit.
Yeah. He's claiming...
you have a hard time imagining Jefferson being more of a racist.
Right. But this guy, he distills it.
Yeah, he completely distills it. And then you take away all of
the
Jefferson's
intellectual
good qualities. You take away Jefferson's engineering expertise, his creativity, his erudition, and his culture, and you wind up with this prick.
Yeah. He claims natural law to back up biblical law. And it's really weird to me that the people who make these arguments are so frequently ending up on the more profitable side of the debate.
Well, of course they
but it's just so weird. Yeah, these are universal truths. You can't argue with them. They just happen to put me in the driver's seat.
They just happen to put me on top. Yeah.
So here's...
duh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's more.
Oh, God.
Look with confidence to the ultimate universal acknowledgement of the truths upon which our systems rest. It is the first government ever instituted upon the principles in strict conformity to nature and the ordination of providence in furnishing the materials of a human society. Many governments have been founded upon the principle of the subordination and serfdom of certain classes of the same race. Such were and are in violation of the laws of nature. Our system commits no such violation of nature's laws. End quote.
That's
so. Yeah, Civil War totally not about slavery. It was really just economics.
Oh yeah, it was just totally no. It's all
when
about
the vice
tariffs.
President,
it's all about tariffs.
Yeah.
Understand? My father.
Yep.
Grew up in Florida.
Okay.
Went to high school in Florida.
What most people don't know about Florida is the further north you go, the further south it becomes.
Yeah.
Florida North is Alabama Junior.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, But some parts of it are Mississippi. Junior. Yeah. I mean, my dad actually grew up
an Arkansas fucked to Mississippi,
and
they're brothers.
Yeah, so
not even sisters.
Wow. Yeah. No. So he grew up in Coral Gables, which is just outside Miami. So that's way,
pretty far south.
Pretty far south.
Yeah.
But it was Miami in the 50s and early 60s before
cocaine made it into a city.
Nice. Yeah. Before the Mariel boat lift, before Cuba and the influx of Cubans. I mean, there were Cubans there, but what he remembers from his childhood is the biggest minority group were Jewish people.
Right.
And so it was still very waspy, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, and much more Southern in many ways than it is today.
Yeah.
Today Miami is its own dimension. It's not even, it's bare. It doesn't even count as the South, like you were saying. Really,
it's New York
Cuba,
of
it's Cuba
Florida.
North or New York South. Back then, no, Florida was still a Confederate state. He grew up as a child. It was still segregated. And so what he learned in school was that the Civil War was about states' rights and it was about tariffs. And when I was in high school in California, reading California textbooks back in the 90s, he had a certain level of cognitive dissonance seeing me doing my American history homework, and he was like, well, that's It's revisionism, whatever. All because, I mean, the story he had learned. Now, understand...
To him, it was canon.
Yeah. My grandfather was from Iowa. My grandmother was from Long Island. So neither one of them were Southerners. They had emigrated to Florida for different reasons early in their lives. But my dad grew up in Florida as the son of these expats from other parts of the country. And so, he that's what he learned in school. That's what he carried with him. And because he was telling me that at the same time I was reading the textbooks from California, which still are bought from the same companies that publish textbooks for, say, Texas.
But back then it was a lot more modular. It really was. The textbook industry wasn't as centralized in Texas, basically.
But they still soft pedaled it.
Yeah.
I mean, they still did
everything. People in California were Okies and Arkies. Yeah. I mean, let's...
Yeah, well, hey, you're talking about...
Your mom's side of the family.
Generations back, my mom's side of the family. Which I don't have a problem with, but apparently Okie's a slur. Like I learned that and I shouldn't be saying it. You're right. Teaching in San Benito High School in outside of forget now Gilroy. The very first year I was teaching, I talked about I used the word Okie, and I had kids in my classroom like
tense up.
Tense up like I had just used the N word.
Right.
Like, oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Because those tensions were still very real. Mm-hmm. But so they soft pedaled it, but it was still more explicit that no, this slavery was a central thing. I mean, they pushed the states' rights was an overarching thing kind of deal. And now, when I go on to teach American history, I'm going to be like, no, here are the primary source documents. Read the primary source documents. Right. Read this Peckerwood-Stevens. Yeah. Read this. It's going to piss you off. If you read this and you don't want to pantomime kicking the shit out of this guy, like, you're in the wrong history class because,
Well, I went to school in Florida as well. Okay. For 5th and 6th grade. Okay. And I was a history nerd. What part of Florida were you in? Bronson. So, did you ever see the movie Rosewood?
A long time ago.
Okay, so there's a scene where all of the KKK are like, they finished killing as many of the black people as they wanted in Rosewood, wiped out the whole town. Now they're going on a rampage, and they go down the road, and there's 13 white guys with shotguns standing in the middle of the road, and the sheriff is in front of them, and he tells them, basically, our black folk are law-abiding citizens. And they're like, no, we know that there's some people in there that need justice. And he has them draw their guns. And he says, you go away. Bronson is a good town. It was that town. Now, to give you some perspective, I think that actually happened. I also would point out that Bronson had about 804 people in it when I lived there. 800 when we left. It had 2 separate cemeteries so that blacks and whites wouldn't rot together. Yeah. Like, it was...
Well, I mean, that was just...
The white side of town were single wide trailers and sometimes double wides if they were really rich. The black side of town were lean-to shacks. Yeah. It was as segregated as it gets. While we were in school together, it was not segregated. But it was real quick.
The moment the bell rang to get out of school...
You go to your separate parts. You might even have a bus route go through both places... But by and large, I mean, it was a tremendously... So the kids that I was in school with, they found out I was a huge history nerd because, I was from San Francisco, which automatically made me gay. And because I was a huge history nerd, that also gave me troubles. Yeah. And so they would bring their Civil War history books, and they'd be like, you see right there, it says that the South succeeds. I'm like, that secedes.
Learn how to read.
And they're like, well, why should I? It's been 3 years in 5th grade. I don't need to start now. I'm not joking. We had a field day where like 6th graders go against 6th graders and 5th graders go against 5th graders. We lost the tug of war because the other team of 5th graders drove to the show. They drove themselves. I kid you not.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, wow. Yes. So, having gone to school in the South, slavery was not mentioned. And that's the thing that so often happens is that you get away with a big lie by just hiding it amongst the weeds. You don't even say that, no, it wasn't. You just downplay its importance, which is what our textbooks were doing in California. So, on April 12th.
Okay, yes.
Fort Sumter gets fired upon.
Yes.
This is 1861.
Yeah.
Virginia and Arkansas almost immediately secede. Tennessee and North Carolina quickly follow. Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri stayed with the Union, but also stayed slave states. Missouri would follow eventually, but it was a state that had 2 competing legislatures, one for each side, because it's Missouri.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They're just such a weird place.
It
really, their most hated food is the final bite of a hot dog. Like, that's how weird they are. Like, that's a thing. It's a very weird state. Kentucky had a similar thing going, but it was a little less obvious. Like, Missouri was like, this is what we do. You got 2 different legislatures. West Virginia wanted to stay in the Union, but Virginia yanked them along because West Virginia wasn't a state yet.
Yeah.
Now, I'm spending a lot of time on these specific states because it's all going to come out later when we talk about wrestling.
Okay.
So, like I said, the Civil War happened. Lots of blood spilled, largely over slavery.
Yeah.
They didn't mean... This doesn't mean that the North is overly fond of black people, by the way.
Oh, no.
It really doesn't. It just means that they don't want to compete with free black labor.
Well, yeah.
Like, that's... Yeah. And you had more of a foothold of a particular kind of moralistic religion.
Well, I'm gonna weigh in here.
Do it.
We're talking about that because Upon the Altar of the Nation is a great study about this, and I don't remember the author's name right now off the top of my head, but one of the things that's really a remarkable part of the divide regionally is the nature of Northern American mainline Christianity and Southern American mainline Protestant Christianity. And the thing is, in the North, it was Presbyterianism and
that worked its way into the Midwest too, including those states that I mentioned that stayed borders.
But it was Presbyterianism. It was not Methodism, but the brother of Methodism that I can't think of. Episcopalianism. Okay. Episcopalians.
By the way, Harry S. Stout.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great book, by the way, for those of you listening. What an amazing read. But it was Episcopalianism and Presbyterianism, both very
British,
very well, yeah,
very committee oriented,
very committee oriented, very and the nature of the spirituality of them is very much orderly. Is the word that comes to mind for me right now.
Yeah.
It's been a long week, and I don't.
No, that's a very Yankee way of looking at it. Actually, was social cohesion.
Yeah. It's and whereas in the South, both amongst slaves and amongst the people that owned them and the rest of white society, the Christianity that you had was cathartic.
Yeah.
It was revival meetings.
Bloodletting.
Yeah, on sometimes a physical level and always a spiritual level,
but focused on the suffering of Christ. Not the reason why he did it, but the actual visceral. They would have liked Mel Gibson.
Yeah. Focused. Yes, yeah. For a variety of reasons, but focused on the suffering of Christ, and then focused on because it's baptism, and it's a very Calvinist, very. Second Great Awakening. Yeah, I blame the Second Great Awakening for so many things in this country, but the Second Great Awakening idea of this epiphany moment of sudden enlightenment and sudden realization of whether or not you were one of the elect and whether or not you were going to go to heaven, and they still talk about, you still hear it in televangelists and that kind of stuff, talking about that moment when you are saved, right? And it was this
a catastrophic Christianity.
Yes, I like it. Yeah, and it was all it was this deeply emotionally cathartic kind of ritual. It was. Screaming and hollering and handling snakes in some places, and this,
the further west you get,
tongues,
the stranger it gets.
Yeah. And
but I'm it really
speaking as a Catholic, stranger it gets. Like, I know one of the things I love about my faith is how weird parts of it are, and I'm just saying, wow. Yeah. So
now, saying that, just real quick, that fits perfectly with a Southern society where it's a landed gentry, the elect, the elite. It absolutely fits into that elitism. Yeah. And if you look to the North was much more cosmopolitan. It was much more You had to take into account a lot of different people, a lot more town council-y.
Yeah.
Very, Salem,
Well, I mean, all the way back to the Puritans, all the way back to the very foundations.
Still council-y.
Yeah.
Not you are chosen, you are not. It was, we're all damned, so let's figure out how to make this work.
Yeah. Well, if you go, to the very founding of the different colonies, you look at who founded them, how they worked. The Puritans showed up as a collective to build the city of God, and the Roanoke colony showed up to make money for second sons of landed gentry.
Right.
And that basically is the pattern kind of all the way down in terms of the differences in social structure. And I mean, the two of us like to just kind of beat up on, Southern institutions and Southern culture. And I genuinely want everybody who's listening to understand, I'm not trying to be pejorative when I describe it that way. I'm just saying that is a key component in the different outlooks that these two parts of the country had.
Absolutely.
And when you're talking about the differences in religion, the one of them was social cohesion. In the North, it was all about, you have to live closer together in cities. Order, in a lot of places, and in the South, it was, at least one theory I've read, which I put some credence into, was the violence and oppression and guilt associated with the day-to-day operation of slavery in their society was something that meant that white Southerners needed revival meetings and needed this catharsis. Yeah. As the way to deal with the pressure
of sinning, essentially,
of doing that all the time, and
Absolutely.
The emphasis on sin and redemption. You don't hear Presbyterians or Episcopalians. I keep having trouble thinking of it.
It's because you're Catholic. It's
rivals across the pond. It's like Brother John. It's like, hey, just come over here. Just admit Francis is a nice guy. Come on. And it's a conversation I've actually had with Methodist friends of mine, tongue in cheek, like, just come on. Yeah. But, and they don't have that same level of catharsis in services. I mean, it can be a very powerful spiritual experience.
But it's different.
But it's very different.
And the catharsis they have is not corporate. In the North, it's corporate. It's not individual. Yeah. It's not...
It's not one person getting called up. Yeah, it's not one person coming up in front of the prayer meeting to testify.
It's secular, quite honestly.
We
are creating a novus ordo. We are creating a new world. Yeah. And God won't come until we get this shit right. Whereas in the South, rapture's coming. You better act the right way because He'll pluck you up, and the rest of them will burn
on an individual way.
Yep.
Yeah. Meaningful insight on
which is interesting because the civil rights movement in the 1960s absolutely adopted that northern belief structure about social justice, but kept
all of the passion.
Yep.
And the call and response. Yeah.
And yet, where they got the most racism hurled against them was in Chicago, in the North. At least according to King, to Martin Luther King. I would say Diane Nash would have a different story. Having stayed mostly in the South for it. So, certain derivations, like you said, of Christianity were more against slavery than others, and largely those were housed in the North. Yeah. Because it's easy to resist other people's temptations, too. Let's be real.
Well, it's easy to resist other people's temptations, and there is something to be said for the fact that in the North, the whole social structure and the economy were built around industry by this time. The nascent beginnings of American industry are established in the North, and you had a system where it was the individual free laborer who was the backbone of the industrial economy. Yeah. And so it's really easy to not so much look down on somebody else's temptations as to condemn a sin that you're not depending on.
Yeah. And one that you're competing against.
Yes.
That's a big... And like I said before, free soil, free labor, free men. Yeah. It was an economic policy.
Oh, yeah. And
as much as it was moral.
Yeah. And part of the moralism that drove the 90 Day men who showed up as soon as all those states seceded, as soon as Fort Sumter got fired on, the militia of Massachusetts, Vermont,
right,
all of those, all the Northeast states. I mean, they had been preparing too. They'd been, because they knew that the Southerners were talking about seceding, and
some northern states wanted to secede to get away from slavery.
Yeah,
that was also a thing.
They had wanted, and
argued states' rights as a foundation of that.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to enforce your slavery up here.
Yeah. It's a remarkable conflation of stuff going on between both sides. But the 90-Day Men basically responded almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
With like all the young men in a town showing up to sign up on the dotted line.
Yep.
And the thing is, the South seceded over slavery. Mm-hmm. The North fought them over preservation of the Union.
Yes.
Because, at the time they signed up, those young men did not care about the plight of slaves in Mississippi or any place down there. No. Many of them changed their minds after they got into the South and saw the way these people were being forced to live. But that's a topic for another time. But, when they signed up, it was, we are a union. We are a nation, and by leaving, you are traitors, and we are not going to let you do it. We're not going to let you kill the country. Mm-hmm. And it's this remarkable dichotomy of motivation.
So for the South, it was about slavery. For the North, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And this is where you can hide the idea of slavery.
Yeah.
And nestle it so that nobody pays attention to it. Because you could say, for the North, it was,
It was,
So I keep pointing out, and you do too, that it was about slavery for reasons that'll become clear soon. But you know what I like? Primary source documents. I like the Confederate Constitution. First, it's specifically because it is such a self-damning thing. The first thing I love about it specifically prohibits foreigners from voting in all states instead of leaving it up to the states. States' rights. I also found Article 1, Section 9 fascinating because I like, parallelism, and Article 1, Section 8 is fascinating in our Constitution. Yeah. So here's what they said. All bills appropriating money shall specify in federal currency the exact amount of each appropriation and the purposes for which it is made. And Congress shall grant no extra compensation to any public contractor, officer, agent, or servant after such contract shall have been made or such service rendered.
Okay.
So in other words, if you're going to pass a bill of spending, you have to say exactly what that money's going toward.
Huh.
That actually makes a lot of goddamn sense.
It does.
It also gives the president and the vice president 6-year terms, but no re-elections. So, we want to be different. Right. Also, South America had done the same later on. Probably just to be a little bit less of a copycat. Presidents had to have lived in the Confederate States of America for 14 years, so naturalization.
All right.
The CSA Constitution actually addressed slavery, which was different than the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution kept doing weird verbal gymnastics. Persons held in service to labor, and so on. Yeah. The CSA Constitution says, the importation of Negroes of the African race from any foreign country other than the slaveholding states or territories of the United States of America is hereby forbidden, and Congress is required to pass such laws as shall effectually prevent the same. No bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law denying or impairing the right of property in Negro slaves shall be passed. So there's two things going on there. You don't get to bring in imports of black people to make them slaves. They can only be homegrown or bought from the United States, which basically means it's not like they got a saw out and tried to sever their ties. Yeah. It means you can go kidnap black people. That's what that is. On top of that, you don't get to bring them in from anywhere else because we don't want our money going elsewhere. So it's like a tariff on slaves. And then you can't pass any law stopping this. In Article 4, the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states, and shall have the right of transit and sojourn in any state of this confederacy with their slaves and other property, and the right of property in said slaves shall not be thereby impaired.
Wow.
Which they already had in the Dred Scott case. That was a big failing of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And the Northwest Territory Ordinance of 1787 had said, no, you can't do that. Dred Scott kind of said fuck you to that.
Carved that out, yeah.
But, I mean, so they're specifically naming
they want to make
slavery.
Because if they're splitting off from the United States, the Dred Scott decision no longer has any legal merit.
So here's how to make it constitutional.
Say,
instead of,
yeah.
But again.
And they're explicitly saying slaves as property.
Yeah. Here's more. The Confederate States may acquire new territory. Because they want to make sure they can go fight and take other shit from people. And Congress shall have power to legislate and provide governments for the inhabitants of all territory belonging to the Confederate States, lying without the limits of the several states, and may permit them at such time and in such manner as it may by law provide to form states to be admitted into Confederacy. Okay, so here's how you expand, which our Constitution didn't quite have, and it became by statute.
Yeah.
Cool. In all such territory, the institution of Negro slavery as it now exists in the Confederate States shall be recognized and protected by Congress. Slavery was mentioned again, just in case people didn't.
Throwing that out.
And by the territorial government. And the inhabitants of the several Confederate states and territories shall have the right to take such territory any slaves lawfully held by them in any of the states or territories of the Confederate States. Wow. So as you can see, they were really big on protecting slavery.
Yeah.
All right, lost cause.
Yeah.
Now we're on to the lost cause.
Yeah.
This is definitely going to be more than a one episode
thing.
But,
already.
Yeah, but we're going to start with the lost cause, and then the next episode we'll pick back up with the lost cause. So, lost cause. It's just really important to recognize the Civil War was founded over slavery. I just want to... I don't know if I've made that clear.
Just like, in case anybody has been asleep for the last 50 minutes, we want to make sure you understand. And slavery was key.
In all fairness, there's been a lot of ink and paper spent on minimizing that fact for the last 150 years.
Yeah.
But it's pretty goddamn clear that it's about slavery.
If you actually take the time to go back to look at the primary source documents, it can't be argued.
So, if you read the history.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so...
Enough said.
Lost cause.
Dead horse.
And this is the crux of what you're going to hear later about wrestling.
Yeah.
The lost cause is the ideology that the South was fighting valiantly and honorably for Southern pride, despite being tied to a regrettable but really minimal sin of slavery.
Fuck these people.
That's what the lost causers are claiming.
Cattle prod.
That's what they're claiming. They're saying, look,
heritage, not hate.
Right, straight up.
Fuck all of them.
Right.
God, that pisses me off.
The lost causers claim that prior to the 1950s, nobody really cared much about the slavery issue. The only reason people care about it in the 1950s is because these black people are wanting to sit. Yeah, I didn't.
They want to vote. What the hell is that?
Or sit at counters.
Yeah.
Tain't natural. Tain't natural. Tain't right. Tain't natural. And nobody put much stock in it. And it was really just a tragic issue of honor that had to play out. There were these two ways of life, blue and gray. There were cousins that just couldn't reconcile their differences.
Well, they couldn't reconcile their differences because one side wanted to own people.
I think you're nitpicking here. I think really it's
a pretty goddamn big nit, man.
So they literally lied about history to make history more palatable. That's what they did.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. So,
which is why it makes me so goddamn angry.
I want to see if these phrases sound familiar to you, given where your dad went to school.
Okay.
I know what they sound like to me, given where I went to school.
Yeah, okay. I'm listening.
The War of Northern Aggression.
Ooh.
The War between the states.
Mm.
The War for Southern Independence.
Oh.
Mm. The Second American Rebellion.
See, that one... the thing, so the War of Northern Aggression, yeah. I've always heard,
I always heard that tongue-in-cheek.
I always heard that as,
the War of Northern Aggression. You'd hear it in an upper class.
In that, Shelby Foot kind of accent.
Yeah.
And you have to laugh. Cause, because, and the insidious thing about it is, from a literal standpoint, from a totally literal standpoint, you're not... From a military history standpoint, literally, it's not incorrect. Because...
Time out. Okay. Fort Sumter...
Yes.
...was the first thing to get shelled, and that was in the South, and Southerners attacking federal troops.
Yes.
So,
However, hold on.
Okay.
The rest of the war...
was fought in the South.
Was fought in the South with the North having to march in and invade in order to enforce Union. So there is
You
can say that one with a straight face, and I won't necessarily want to kick you in the nuts.
How about the War Between the States?
Between the States.
I heard, the first time I heard that, Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the thing is, the War Between the States, again, is
not inaccurate.
It is a massive whitewash of what was. I mean, it takes all the color and blood out of it and turns it into this,
It Ken Burns it.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. I love Ken Burns, but his Civil War, like if you watch it now, it's buying in way too much. It's the cousins. It's a tragedy. These cousins are fighting.
Yeah.
How about the War for Southern Independence?
Fuck them with cattle prod. That's bullshit.
But how is this conceptually that different than the American Revolution, though? And I'm not saying that ironically.
I know.
I genuinely, because you have one group of people saying, we don't want to do it your way, we're out.
Yeah.
That's what's going on.
Yes. The thing is, I'm going to say that I don't think there was a single Enlightenment thinker.
That's true.
Who would have looked at the two conflicts.
That's true.
And seen them as morally equivalent.
That's a very good point.
Neither Locke nor Hobbes, who are my two,
your guys,
the guys from the Enlightenment. Neither one. Even of them.
Jefferson wouldn't have said
it. Jefferson would have looked at it and gone, "No, no, look, okay, no, look."
Right.
Ours was about representation.
Sure.
You have representation.
You are overrepresented.
You are in every way. I made sure.
Yeah. I benefited greatly.
Jackasses.
Yeah.
I'm one of you.
I made sure. The books for you.
I cooked the book. Yes, I rigged it for you.
Yeah. You get to claim 3/5 of every black person.
Because
they don't get a vote.
They don't have to.
You just made super citizens out of the white people who own them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was one of them, and
I
wanted to make sure that...
Which is going to keep it going longer, by the way.
Yeah.
So you're welcome.
Yeah, so you're welcome.
So, so it is fundamentally different then.
So it is, yeah. And...
Again, it's technically true. But so fundamentally different it's not just a difference of degree. It is a difference in kind.
Yeah, it is. What's insidious about so much of the kind of stuff that Lost Cause historians do is that it is that drop of truth in the middle of the lie.
Yeah.
And it's
and they hide behind that.
Yeah, it's that one little fig leaf that they can use and use that to cover up.
Yeah,
the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
It's not something you can just look at and say no prima facie that's completely wrong.
Right, you have to address it.
You have to address it, which then allows them to have a conversation.
Right, which allows them to legitimize their very yeah. So I take it we don't even want to go over the Second American Rebellion. Here's some people who called it the Civil War. These amateurs: Jefferson Davis, Ulysses S. Grant, Robert E. Lee, William T. Sherman, P.T. Beauregard, Nathan Bedford Forrest,
Big Willie T.
Abraham Lincoln, all called it the Civil War. Yeah. The guys who fought and led the Confederacy called it the Civil War.
The Civil War, yeah.
So, Lost Cause. It really attaches itself to how the war was fought.
Yes.
Because
that's where they had any kind of a leg to stand on at all.
And so they created a mythos out of that rather than looking at why. If you eliminate the why, you can make heroes out of traitors.
Yeah.
And you can make it so your neighbors and your own relatives were merely misguided, not men trying to wreck a country to keep other people in chains.
Yeah.
The best part of Alexander Stephens' speech is that he doesn't stick to it at all, by the way. Once the Civil War ends, he tries to backpedal.
Of course he does.
He makes the speech, it's all about slavery, and then he claims it's not about slavery. It was about economics. And since the North was attacking them for their use of black people as labor, people who want to simplify and just like, I just don't like political nastiness, were able to hang with that.
Well, both sides are equally wrong.
Well, exactly. Well, and that comes into the idea of memory, because when you get to the 50th anniversary, and I'm going to get into it a bit, you get to the 50th anniversary of Gettysburg, the North also wants to say, okay, cool, because then we can all get back together. And there's a wonderful picture of people who fought and shot at each other, shaking hands. Very old man.
And moving in its way when you think about the individual men doing that. But of
course, the amount of black people who suffered as a result of that is astounding. Yeah. So it's about different ideas on the Constitution.
Yeah.
Since it was really about whether or not states had the right to leave the Union. It's about culture clash, since the South had a culture of honor and the North had a culture of making money. I'm getting flipped off here.
You're not. You're just the one across the table.
Yeah. Now,
and somebody's got to get flipped off.
Here's the best part. All of this is going to tie into wrestling very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but for right now, we've run into just about an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop us here, and we will come back to reconvene for the next part of The Lost Cause, because it really deserves several of its own podcasts.
Yeah.
So for A Geek History of Time, I'd like to point out to you folks that Geek History of Time has its own Twitter now. We're up to 2 followers. More people should click follow.
Yeah.
It's at Geek History Time. If you also want, you could follow me at DaHarmony.
And you can follow me at E.H. Blaylock. I'm neither as erudite nor as cutting as Damian is, but I have my moments. Also, I spend less time shouting directly at the president.
I do like to shout at a person who is in power. It's a hobby. So I promise it will get geekier, but we just need to
set the stage.
Really set the stage. So we will see you all in the next episode. For Geek History of Time, I'm Damian Harmony.
I'm Ed Blaylock.